On another occasion, Jesus began to teach by the lake. He went by the sea. Actually got into a boat and went into the sea. So he went on the shore of the lake, what? Sea of what? Galilee. The crowd that gathered around him was so large, I think it was getting bigger and bigger. He was becoming very popular. That he got into a boat, probably a small boat, again. And then he got into a boat, and maybe a few of his disciples were in there. Like it could have been either Peter and Andrew's boat or James and John's boat, almost for sure. And then it says he got into a boat and sat on it. Now, he can't sit, but he's just got there and sat down like a rabbi teaches it, like I'm sitting when I teach. He says, sat in it out on the lake. So, the boat went out a little, pushed away from shore for a little bit, and he sat. Why? Because it was too crowded. They were kind of pressing against the sea, pressing against him. So he just got out there and went out, and they didn't want to get all wet and the water, and that'd be imposing too much, kind of rude. And then it says, let's see, sat down while all the people were along the shore at the water's edge. I wonder if they sat down. I don't know. Sat down, and he talked for a good while. And what did he talk about? He says, and he taught them many things. He's loaded up with instruction. Ooh, to hear all that he said. I don't think every word, for sure. No way is it all recorded here, but highlights were recorded in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. We're in Mark chapter 4. It says he taught them many things by parables. Now, I've discussed this at length, pretty much, in Matthew chapter 13. And you go back, you can listen to it, but I'll explain some more what this was. He taught them many things by parables, and he spoke a lot of parables. In Matthew 13, by the way, there were 7 for sure parables, and the 8th one I think is sort of a parable, and I'll count it as 8, but 7 definite parables. In this one, he only speaks 3 in this chapter. It says, he taught them many things by parables, and in his teaching said, this is what he first started out with, especially this particular parable. Listen. Hearken. Pay attention. Listen to this. And then at the end of this parable, he says, anyone who has ears to hear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying. No, let him hear. I'm thinking about Revelation. There's a similar passage. So Jesus is there teaching. Now, parables. What is it? Do you remember? All right, here's a new definition that I've got. Same meaning. Parables means the placing of two things. You have two things. Placing of two things side by side. Picture that. You have this and then that. Let's put them side by side. For purposes of comparison. For the reason you're putting them side by side, you're going to compare these two things. It really means compare together in short form. So what is a parable? You take something and you compare it together. There's more to it. This famous saying is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. It's pretty good. Doesn't cover it all. An earthly story, something of the earth that we're familiar with. Could be a farming thing, which is a lot of those. Or it could be a vineyard, it could be a king in a palace. So you could, once upon a time, a story that has a meaning to it. Now, just why did he start speaking in parables? Because this is when it happened, right here. Something happened, a change. And this is, I'm going to show you a quick picture, I think. Oh, wait, I forgot. I want to do another thing about this. What is a parable? If I were to take this, and you'll immediately know what it is as soon as I see it, something earthly. Okay, we got an elephant. Really beautiful elephant here. So right here, you got this big elephant, like huge, really cool guy here. Just a beautiful, statue or whatever. Ooh, it's heavy. They're heavy. Anyway, now, if I was to share put something beside this, then I might use it as a big problem. I have an elephant of a problem. I have a big problem. The elephant is not the problem, but it's an illustration, it's a picture, it's a figure, it's a parable of something that I'm having trouble with. Like I'm in big trouble, or I've got a big problem. And there's different ways you can use that. But see how there's two things. One, two, this explains this and this explains that. You know, they work together to illustrate some situation that you want to share on. That's kind of a good picture. But why did he start speaking in parables? And let me tell you kind of what happened. I'm going to get into that. But right here, if this is a timeline of Jesus Christ, you know, from the time that he was baptized, because he was about 30 at this point, my opinion 32, but definitely about 30, which is rounding off around there, specifically probably 32. Anyway, if you go back here, you know, further back, then you have his birth and, you know, his childhood as a teenager, then 20-something-year-old and all that, and his 20s. Then he got baptized, and then he went into the wilderness, and probably about, I don't know, maybe, I'm going to guess at about 8 months later, he started getting out there and really teaching. He started collecting his disciples in there. Then he started teaching like crazy. And then it went on, and he's, you know, crowds are coming, healings, miracles, deliverances. And the people, I believe, they definitely wanted to come for his works. Not maybe so much for his words. You got a choice, works or words. What do you want? The wonders of God and all the miracles and the blessings and all that? Or do you want instruction, truth? Do you want your life to be changed? Probably the crowds were coming more for this instead of this, which is kind of sad. So it kind of led into this. All the way through, as it got more and more, he got more opposition. More people, like the Pharisees and scribes, they were becoming his enemy. And it was getting hot. Like, so he wasn't nervous and fearful at all, but he realized he didn't want to get it like too hot. So he would pull back. It's like a fire in the kitchen, get out of the kitchen. So heat was in the kitchen, smoke and all that. So he got out of the kitchen and he pulled away from synagogues. He started teaching outdoors. Here he is outdoor in the lake, you know, on the boat. And so now I'm going to tell you why I think there's parables, but a change seemed to have happened. All this time we've been talking about this. Now throughout he had little tiny parables. Quick pictures, kind of like that elephant picture that I just showed, representing a problem. He did a lot of those, excuse me. But then he's changed his method, a change into parables right there. Then he did parables somewhat here and there. And then he was definitely teaching his disciples all through here, but he's teaching a lot of crowds. He tends to go towards really training now of his disciples. He really focused a lot on his disciples. As a matter of fact, some of these things in the parables weren't even for the people on the outside. So that kind of really, and of course, this was all leading, this is a future, we're about here probably. Here he literally died on the cross. So we have a lot more stories and a lot of teachings all through here, but this is about where we are. And I think it was maybe halfway through or a third of the way through, he started speaking and changing into parables. By the way, why was he getting such crowds? Let's go to that real quick and then we'll talk about parables and all a little bit more. But why such large crowds? I'm going to suggest different reasons, like why these crowds, we have crowds, and why such large ones? Well, you already know. I mean, here's some of the reasons. Some of these you may have not thought of. Causes of the crowds. Cures. Miracles, deliverances. They were a lot of needy people, so that's a good thing. But a lot of times you come for the wonders and the works and get your needs met instead of, what do you want me to do, God? I personally believe probably some people went away, and they went away like the lepers one time. 10 lepers were healed, and one guy came back and thanked him. The others were just went on, I'm healed, I'm healed. They just got what they needed. Well, you don't want to go to church for that reason. You don't want to serve God for that reason, just to get what you want and the benefits of Christ. There's tons, millions of benefits, eternal benefits, wonderful things that God wants to load you with. But don't go after God for the things that you can get from him. Go after God to find out what he wants you to do. But anyway, cures. The causes for the large crowds are curiosity. They were very curious, about what in the world, who is this? They heard about him, word spread. And then crowds draw crowds. That's kind of true, isn't it? Like if a bunch of people are going somewhere, what's going on over there? Let me check this out. They're checking it out because they just saw all these crowds. Crowds tend to draw more crowds. Something's happening, you want to go. Or everybody's going to see it. Most people tend to want to go. I don't. Like, you need to find out what is it first. Everybody's going to this party at school or something. Find out what type of party it is. I'm talking to high schoolers or maybe even middle schoolers. So you kind of find out, what is this all about? I mean, that's what they were doing. Oh, I was going to say, you find out before you go. Like, if everyone's going to this one movie, I just don't go to any movie. I want to find out, what is this movie? Is this bad? I'm not going to go to it. You know, so, but that's not most people. People are followers. Not good. But you hear about it, and then you want to go because everybody's going, or everybody's telling you about it. You know, so anyway. Another reason I think there were so many crowds is Jesus was captivating for the little ones in here, younger ones. They were like, wow, fascinating. He's so exciting. Exciting teacher, an exciting, loving person. He's delivering people and healing people. That's fascinating. It's very captivating. Captivating means you're captivated. You're like really into it. A lot of attention on him. And then this is a real reason, and notice I have 3 exclamation points on this one. Close to God. Close to God. That's the reason some people, I believe, were coming because they realized this man was from God and they wanted to learn from him and change. That's the reason why you should go to church. That's the reason why you should seek the Lord. That's the reason why you should come close to God, to get changed and saved and make him happy. Yeah. All right, so here's another thought about, like, more about this parables, and then I'll try and attempt to say a little reason why he started speaking in them. Parables. So this is, one is, every parable had a message to it, or messages, but I put in parentheses because usually it's just one main point, which is down here too. I'll explain that. Message. There is a message to the parable, so I'm not just telling a story. Like, maybe this is, sort of a parable. 3 little pigs. And the big bad wolf says, I'll huff and puff and blow your house down, if you know this. 3 houses, 3 pigs. Characters are all set up for the plot, for the story. What's the meaning of the story? What's the moral of the story? Prepare well, prepare your house well. Build it carefully. Take time and build it strong so the wolf can't get in. Right? So that's a meaning to the stories, a meaning to parables. The main point, usually parables have one main point, one purpose of doing it, one theme, one big thing. Although there's themes around it, especially in Jesus' parables, by the way, in my opinion, he was the greatest. If you compare his stories with others, the greatest storyteller ever. Brilliant stuff. Concise, short, not like me, I talk a lot. Anyway, but there's a main point. Also, there's a right from wrongs part of it. There's a moral to the story. And it also is sort of like a mirror. The parable was excellent in showing things like who you are, what you're like. Ooh, I'm like that guy in that parable. It's a mirror. You look at it and you say, oh boy. Or another thing is, if you turn it 45 degrees angled, like the story kind of angles up, and then you can see what God's like. All through the parables, God is shown. He's revealed. Really cool. So there's a mirror kind of towards him, kind of look what he looks like, kind of angled, and then 45-degree angle. And then you put it 90-degree angle and look at yourself, you know. All right, last one is there's mystery and secret stuff to it. Woo! Sorry. Excuse me. Mystery. And Jesus even said it in Matthew 13, Mark 4, Luke 8. There's mysteries to his parables. Now, the reason he was speaking in parables at this time was, it's a deep one. I kind of talked about it in Matthew. You could go back to Matthew. But real quick, just a quick hit on this. There was so much opposition and heat, people coming at him. And then there were so many crowds who come in for superficial reasons. They're really not good. They're kind of fake, and they just wanted to, they're curious and all. And people's hearts were hard, and they kept being hard. So he decided, you know what, I'm going to not share as plain speech anymore as much, and I'm going to hide my messages in code, sort of a secret mystery code. And I think that's why I did it, so that they wouldn't understand, but the ones who really wanted God, they would understand. That's how it is today. People who don't know God a lot of times, and I'm not talking about if you're really young, you're just learning how to read, but people who don't know God, they don't understand this, but I didn't understand until I got saved. I got saved October 5th, 1977 on a Wednesday night. And when I got saved, the book opened up to me. The Bible says a natural man cannot receive the things of the Spirit of God. They're foolishness to him. Foolishness. They don't understand it. Like you're blind when you read it. You can't understand. But I started seeking and reading, and I didn't understand. But I kept going, and that's why I got saved. Well, Jesus came after me, and I received him. And then this book started opening up to me. It's still opening up. Like, it's so cool. It's beautiful. So people weren't really interested in Jesus and his word. So he gave them time. He gave them chances. So he started changing his method of teaching. Now, there are times he spoke very plainly. Other times it's parables. Okay. And so here's another thing that I do want to say, that Jesus had already been teaching in parables, but they're real short, not these longer stories. Some of these stories are real short, But here it is. It's what parables are like, pictures in speech. It's pictures in speech. You speak it. In Mark, these are the ones that he's done so far in chapters 1, 2, and 3. And then 4, he really has at it and goes into beautiful stories. And so the story in the parable, like he said, there's a doctor for the sick. It's not the healthy that need a doctor. It's the sick that need a doctor. And I have not called righteous to get saved, but sinners to repentance. See, he used that parable, that parallel, side by side, doctor, sick. Oh, sinner, Jesus. Jesus is a doctor and you're a sinner. Sickness is not sin, but sin is sort of like sickness. Parallel. Another one is children of the bridegroom. Remember, why don't your disciples fast? Because the bridegroom's here, Jesus. And so he said the children of the bridegroom and the friends of the bridegroom and all, they don't fast during the wedding time and when they're the celebration of the bridegroom. Another one is, if you remember, the new cloth on an old garment, or the new wine in old bags, wine skins. Kingdom is here. See? This is a parable part, the physical part that they're all aware of. They're aware of that. They understand doctors. This is what the point is. Here, it's talking about the sinner. Here, it's talking about the children of the bridegroom are disciples. This is Jesus, the bridegroom, the groom, and they're kind of like the children of it. And then the new cloth and the new wine is like the kingdom is here, and there needs to be change from the old. And then here's another one, like, remember the other ones, the parable that we did, sort of parables. Kingdom divided against itself, house divided against itself. The strong man in a house, and you have to bind up the strong man. Satan against Satan, that's his point on that. What? Satan against Satan? No way. A kingdom won't stand. A kingdom divided against itself will not stand. A household does stand. And then you need to bind up the strong man so that you can take his goods, and Jesus was taking people back towards God, away from Satan. Good stuff, huh? That's parables. I'm not going to go into the first parable because I wanted to keep this short. It might be too long. Well, it's not too long. Hopefully you're enjoying this. I'm enjoying talking to you. And so keep it up. Go dig deep. This is Mark chapter 4. We're going into some incredibly wonderful material. And I'm glad you listened to me all the way to the end. Thank you.